Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the One Origin podcast. I am so thrilled to welcome today my teacher, mentor, guru, the wonderful woman that Dr. Martina Ziska is. Martina, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being with us today here. Um, I could introduce you in so many ways, but I think I will just say that not only you are an amazing Ayurvedic medical doctor, but you are an incredible person with so much insight about life, about health in a holistic way. So I'm really happy to have you here today to discuss a bit about life, about health, about Ayurveda, about Vedic sciences, and to demystify a bit more what are the message that Ayurveda and yoga and the Vedic sciences want to share really with us. So thank you for joining us today here.
Thank you for a lovely introduction. I'm thrilled to be here. And what else we would do on Monday morning, huh? Then have this lovely chat, I think.
Exactly. Right. It's Monday. It's a moon day. So we get a bit more connected with our internal nature and emotions. Tell me, when we speak about Ayurveda, we could take it really in a very academical way and see what all the books and the trainings that are out there tell us. Ayurveda is a holistic medical alternative system that has its origins in India, etc., etc. But how would you describe Ayurveda? What is really Ayurveda?
Let's not take it academic way, I think. I don't find that particularly helpful because we try to define something that has been very well already defined. So I don't feel a need to do it again. Usually it ends up giving constraints on the system rather than coming from a place of understanding or the effort to try to understand it. The simplest way I could say what Ayurveda is, it's natural laws. It's a laws of life. So for me, it's a little bit unfortunate when we look at Ayurveda as a specific system. For me, it's a system that is dedicated to understanding these laws, just like physics is a system of understanding these laws of nature, looking at them certain way. So the same way is Ayurveda. And we don't say, the law of gravity. Do you think it applies or not? Or do you like it? Or it comes from India, so it will apply only to India? No, we don't say that. We know without a doubt that if I drop something, it's going to go down. It's not going to go up. Same way, it's with the other natural laws, but we don't have that understanding. And because we don't have that understanding, we think Ayurveda is an optional system. Oh, I like to look into it, or I don't like it, or I'm going to ignore it, or I disagree with it. Well, good luck disagreeing with natural laws. I don't think it's to the benefit of us to go against what's natural. I think it's to the benefit of everyone to collaborate with what's natural. And Ayurveda is a system that's dedicated to helping us to do it. Simple as that. Nothing more, nothing less.
You mentioned two things that I think are just so important. Ayurveda is a system. Could you go a bit deeper into that? What do we understand when we say Ayurveda is a system? In which way?
It's part of a larger system. So like if you are a researcher of a particular star, that star is a part of a constellation or of the sky, or of a particular galaxy. I'm not an astronomer, so I don't want to go further to make some blunder but we all understand what I'm trying to say. The same way, Ayurveda is a part of a larger system in this way, Sankhya philosophy, which is a system that enumerates. Sankhya means enumeration, how the universe is structured and how it functions. So we say it's a scientific system because it's replicable. So if someone goes and looks at the same principles or same realities, because it is a reality, in a different ways, they are going to come up with the same result if they use the correct methodology. And this is one of the points where, academics say, oh, we're not going to really, pay attention to this because there's not enough research on this or that. The system is research itself. Its trans research is beyond research. So usually science, how it works is we see that there is some phenomena and we're looking how we can understand it. But for some reason with Ayurveda, we are saying, prove us first that this phenomena is existing, and then we're going to consider that. And it might have to do, unfortunately, with how we approach the system. Because again, we're looking at it, it's some Indian, hogwash, or it applies only to India. And then we understand it so in such a narrow, limited way. Oh, there are these Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Who the hell knows what that is? And it applies, some people say coffee instead of kapha, which is lovely, which makes me laugh hilariously. Because that's something we can relate to because it's our reality. We have not either understood it enough or have not made enough of effort to relate to it in a way that's natural for us. So
And
it's not Vata, Pitta, Kapha, it's movement, it's change, it's holding things together. Can we relate to that? Of course we can relate to that, all of us. And so on and so on. So Ayurveda is a discipline that in a very systematic, cohesive, replicable way describes natural phenomena and how they relate to our existence, to human body, to functioning of the human body. And the whole idea is that if we have better understanding of this, we can make better choices and therefore have better life. That's the whole purpose of Ayurveda. I don't see anything bad in this. And
you were mentioning,
have we done enough science on that? If you say to someone, I love you, and you caress their hand, it's gonna have this effect. Have we done enough research on that? No, we probably haven't. Is that a reason why we should not do that? No, I don't believe. It's trans science. It's science in itself. We don't need to make science because thousands of years know that it's going to bring a good benefit.
you were speaking about natural laws. That was the second important thing that I took from your first words. Ayurveda is about the natural law that we all have inside. So hence this explains how it can be the principles of Ayurveda. They can be transposed to any of us, no matter, like you were saying in the beginning, no matter where we are on earth, because it's about natural law. And in this natural law, and you mentioned Samkhya, that sometimes we see it as the philosophy of Samkhya, but actually it's, from what I understand from you, it's more than philosophy. It's describing the structure of the microcosmos, within the macrocosmos of us, of how life is being created in the whole vast universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate a bit?
Well, actually, the Sankhya is a part of Shadarshanas, the six systems that are focused on researching microcosm, not the little, the limited us. But in Sankhya, there is a direct correlation given to how that big is reflected in us, in each of us on a limited base. And the interesting part, or what I find very interesting, is that these laws and principles relate to each of us in a similar way, but we don't respond to them all in the same way because we are different. And this makes, perhaps that's the reason why our understanding of Ayurveda and propagation and how we relate to it is limited, because I think we got the part one, that it's the same laws, but I'm not sure we got the part two. We relate to it differently. It's like saying all plants respond to sun in the same way. Well, some, if they get too much sun, it kills them. Some, it kills them if they don't get enough sun. We are the same way. And we are way more complex than are the plants and the animals and the other species. So the level of complexity is more. But on the other hand, we are equipped with the brain and the mind that can handle the complexity. Otherwise, all the existence would be doomed. All the human existence would be doomed. Are we using that mind in that way? That's a separate story. Or what are we using it for? So that's very simple. It's the same laws, but because each of us is structured and functions a little bit differently, then we respond to them and we relate to them in a different way. And we know there are differences. Just take, if there's a mother and has more than one child, they are different. They come from the same gene pool, same mom, same father, let's hope. Otherwise, there's a good explanation. But if they come from the same parents, then how come they are so different? And sometimes they are so different. So, we can have an explanation, or right now we say, oh, we don't know. And until research will say, this is the way. If we go the same way we approach Ayurveda, we would say it's not true. It doesn't exist, because if we don't know why, we saying it doesn't exist. That's what we say for other further away known phenomena in science. We have that approach. For me, it's a kindergarten, it's a childhood, easy, simple logic. We're just applying what we're doing to other domains, to other phenomena. But we do have that approach, and to me, it makes no sense.
I think it's very valuable what you just said. I mean, we're trying to get Ayurveda into this scientific research approach. We need to prove A plus B that it is like this. While you come from a scientific background, could you tell us a bit more? How did you pass from the scientific research to Ayurveda, to understand that actually Ayurveda is very powerful?
Well, there is a saying, and I can attest to it, that Ayurveda is both science and art. So we know there are logically understandable, mathematically quantifiable phenomena. And next to it, there is a world of art and aesthetics and all of that, and psychology, which we cannot quantify, which is about different qualities and different phenomena. And Ayurveda, I think it's Dr. Vasant Lad who propagates this approach and this view, him being an artist. So my journey, we all are set up in a certain way. So my journey was through modern medicine, which the basic science I struggle with. I have struggled with, because that's not my nature. My nature for this lifetime is when it relates to people and to the human factor, especially to the internal factor. But in going 6 years of medical training, there was no room for that. So I thought we would get to that. Then when I started practicing, for me, it was neurology. And I chose neurology specifically. It was really by exclusion. It was not like love at the first sight. For me, the love at the first sight was differential diagnosis. I find that exciting beyond, beyond reason, but there is no specialty in differential diagnosis. Because in a differential diagnosis, you have to use your mind in a certain discerning way, which came easy for me. And we have tendency to flock to what comes easy to us. That's how we were set up, because we have a certain amount of life energy, prana, that comes from the yogic science. And once we use it, we are done. That's it. Our existence is over. So life has set it up in a kind of a smart way and helpful way for us, that we tend to go in the direction naturally where we use our energy the most efficiently. And when it's easy or natural, maybe it's better to say natural rather than easy, because that's somewhat misleading, because natural might not be only easy, but still is natural. What it means is we use the appropriate amount of energy for that. Not more, not even less, just the appropriate amount, especially not more, because we tend to use much more than it's necessary and get much less than it's desirable. So I naturally gravitated to what was where I felt resonance, let's say, or and I think this is deeper than just physical laws. This goes beyond the physical laws. There is some deep desire and attraction. But so differential diagnosis, no. Internal medicine specializes in various things, no, because I wanted to deal with the whole person, not whole body, but whole person. So you would say psychiatry, but that was at the time when psychopharmacology was rampant, was prominent approach in psychiatry. And to say the truth, when I first saw the electric shock and the whole approach to psychiatry, I realized I would get in terrible trouble, because I could not follow the protocol, because my not even understanding, but the deep feeling was somewhere else. I thought some people that were considered to be, psychiatrically very disturbed, having severe diagnosis as, for example, schizophrenia and stuff, they made perfect sense to me. They made more sense than people who were considered to be normal and perfect healthcare professionals. And so I realized that that is not a good starting point for being in that profession. So what was left was neurology. And because I love medicine, for me, it's a way to look deeply into what's meaningful, and legitimate way, so to speak, also, which is very important. Um, then neurology, romantically at that point, I thought, oh, brain is a mystery. We don't know so much about it. And so I have so much opportunity to discover and understand. Well, let me tell you the reality of practicing neurology, although at a university hospital, one of the best places in my country, which is Czech Republic. At that time when I started was still Czechoslovakia. I was right before the Velvet Revolution when I started practicing neurology. The reality was completely different. And I felt frustrated because I was doing everything I was taught, and it was not working. People were not getting better. And I did not understand why. Because I didn't have, any life being a young doctor, and I spent all my time in a hospital. I also did a research on plasticity of the brain in newborns, because that was the only way I could secure a place at university hospital. I was also teaching physiology second year students, which was a disaster because I did not know it and understand it. Um, and the smart kids, quickly understood that this was not my field. So it was terrible struggle. But where it compensated, where it was easy breezy with no effort, really flow, was when I was with the patients, when I was with the people. And because I levitated to them and I spent lots of time with them, night shifts and other things. Then what I was starting to notice is that their life, their private life outside of a hospital, what's going on in the relationships, what's going on in the jobs, and all of those things, their financial situation, other things, they factor into their health status. Yet, what was frustrating in the modern medicine, there was no room for that. When I met Ayurveda, I felt so happy because Ayurveda builds all of this into the system. Not only that it notices it, that it's important, but it's a key pillar. It's one of the key pillars. What one lives, how one thinks, when one goes to sleep, with whom you talk, what you put in your mouth, what you put out of your mouth, everything factors in, and everything is integrated then into how your body functions or dysfunctions. So I was very happy and I found the right system for me. And that's why I stayed with the system pretty much, the last 30, almost soon gonna be 35 years. My whole adult, professional, and personal life, because I found no reason to go out of it. Little bit, there was a period when I was brought closer to the psychological part, about 10, 15 years ago, when I ventured out and went into the Jungian view and try to, borrow and bring in that, because I was missing that in Ayurveda. But even with that, later on, I realized there is missing the essence. There is, and I start looking for it in Ayurveda. And unfortunately, it's out of the system. So if we are fighting over, when is the time to have the biggest meal, because we have not understood that it's given by the sun, and that's clear. If you take the direction of the sun, there's nothing to discuss. Then you can imagine how confused it is when it comes to psychology, because there's so many opinions, so many ways, so many systems, and there are other systems. There is Chinese medicine, and there is, you know, Buddhism and other philosophies factoring in, and of course there are so many people nowadays who are coming with their own philosophies. So much is being offered, but what I was drawn to is to go to the source of something that has perfectly functioned thousands of years. So I thought there must be something that's there as well for the mind. And we should remind ourselves that at some point, the understanding got split into the body and the energy and the inner development and good living, practical living, Ayurveda and yoga I'm speaking about. But this goes beyond that. This goes to the essence of who we are and how we function, regardless. And that, to me, is when I call it Vedic science. And the modern application is, you know, how to build your home and where Stapatya Veda or the architecture, how the planets influence us. So as Jyotish, astrology, how the sounds make an influence on us, Gandharva Ved, and yoga and Ayurveda, of course, we think we are familiar with.
You said, you mentioned, well, I will start with the last one. With the last thing that you just said, we think we are familiar with yoga. Why aren't we familiar with yoga? What are we missing in today's world, in our Western world, right? When we say, I'm doing yoga today, I have you done your yoga? What are we missing in this kind of approach?
Well, I don't feel qualified to speak, you know, for the whole world or the Western world. I can only speak out of my limited personal experience and observation. And interestingly enough, if I look at it from that standpoint, it's true. What am I going to say for both yoga and Ayurveda? We are missing the Agni. We are missing the fire. And the fire is the fire of understanding, but the fire of understanding is an outcome of the fire of the desire. And the desire is to understand. So if we want to have a good understanding, we need to have a matching desire to understand. We do have desire, yet the desire is more specifically going to control, to use the system according to my idea, how it can benefit me, my goals, which is different than a burning desire to understand the principle of the thing, what's behind it. You know, children have it to a degree, not consciously. But you know, when the child plays and they take a car, truck, and they put it in parts, and they are quiet and they don't hear anything, and they are absorbed in that discovery process. And recently I have visited a student of mine, lovely lady whom I know for a long time, and now it's three of them, her husband and the child, and the son is 2.5, and lovely family. So the child is secure and behaves naturally. You know, I'm not going to say behaves well, behaves naturally. And I asked her if he gives any trouble, and she said no, he's fine. You know, he's generally fine. And I said, does it happen that when you don't hear him for a period of time, that it's potentially trouble? Because I remember my daughter, and usually with small children, he's 2.5, around that age. When you don't hear them, it's become suspicious. I remember my own daughter at around that age, a long time I haven't heard her, and then I found her in the bathroom taking her plush toy, and stuffing it in the toilet. And I said, what the hell are you doing? And she said, I am giving whatever the name, it wasn't Barney, but someone else, some character from Sesame Street, I think it was. She said, I'm washing his hair. A logical thing, She's too little to reach to the sinks, and but she could crawl in a bathtub, which would be a big disaster. But she was a practical kid, and she remained practical kid. Now being young adult, still fairly practical. It makes perfect sense. You need to wash hair, so you go where the water is, and it's in the toilet. So I could not even be angry, I remember. And I said, hopefully being as good parent as I could be, said, next time you wouldn't do this, let's do it together. And then because she was at the age she took a nap. And while she was taking nap, I put in a washing machine this lovely friend stuffed toy. And then while she woke up, she had it, because I did not want the toilet water, to be kissed and hugged and all of that. So that's natural. I mean, children do it in this way, and it's natural for us. This is the nature of life, to discover. And for that, we have to have a burning desire. And that's the Agni. And we don't have that in yoga. We don't have that in Ayurveda. How many people do Ayurveda, follow or practice, but it's this like half-eye sleepy, I am doing it. Where is the passion? Where's the excitement? Where's the fire? I
We're
think
doing
that
it
is what we're
more to
missing.
be more to say I need to do it. Someone told me maybe, or that I have to do it, but we're not doing
Definitely.
it from this place of I want to discover, I want to empower myself finally, right?
And that's really important what you say, the word empowerment, because if you approach it in this way, it automatically brings you in empowerment, because it brings you personal, important discovery that only experience, first-hand experience can give you. That's number one. The other thing is that when you approach it in this way, there is no right or wrong. And this is really important point, because lots of these inner path, well, we call it discipline, which is the word no one likes. We might, explore on that at some point if you see that's important, but let's call it path. But even if you go for a hike and you want to walk 15 kilometers or 13 kilometers or whatever, you have to have a certain discipline, certain style. You cannot run it. If you start running it like a sprint, you're going to get exhausted unless you're very well trained, and so on and so on. So again, it's a very simple logic. It's a very simple reality. So we approach the inner past from the logical standpoint. This is the probably biggest mistake as far as I'm concerned we are doing, next to that it's missing the most important ingredient, and that's the fire of the desire to understand. And understand what? There are two things. Who am I? How do I function? And how do function things around me? And if we put these two together, We have Ayurveda. That's all what Ayurveda is about. How do I function? What do I need to function well? How am I put together? And how do things around me that influence me function? What are their properties? How they're going to influence me? Is this good for me or not? And we do this, for example, with food, but we do it in such a mechanical way. You know, carrots are not good because they are orange and they increase pitta. Okay. That's wrong. It's like saying sun is bad because you can get burned. True, but you cannot live without it. So let's learn how to deal with it. And everyone needs something different. Someone needs a huge dose and then they open up like a flower. Someone gets 10 minutes and they burn. We are different. So we need to learn what's applicable to us. The interesting, a little messy, but never boring part is that even we change within one person. So when we discover something for ourselves, it does not stay. We probably know that or have noticed that. Why is it that last summer it worked and this summer it's not working? And we want to use the same thing because, again, we are set up in a way to some degree energetically for, I don't want to say word compliance, but for efficiency. And that is to use our energy, inner energy, in the most efficient way, which is the flow. The flow is the most efficient way.
You mentioned something that I wanted to raise up. Well, we see so often out there lists of how you need to eat and what you need to do according to your dosha, or in the best case, according to your bi-doshic constitution. Eat these. These are the food that you can eat. These are those that you cannot eat. You need to do this, but not that. And that brings us again to what you just said, the need to experience, I mean, to have a first-hand experience and to experiment on ourselves. And the second one is, you mentioned the word discipline, which I think is very important to discuss about what discipline means in a positive way, because actually discipline is positive, while staying in this flow that you also mentioned. How do I create a discipline while, okay, my body might be changing? Why is my body changing? Is it natural? Is it not natural? And how do I bring discipline and flow? Because we might say maybe discipline, it's something, it's discipline, there's more inertia, or we might feel that there's more inertia there. And flow, it's something that flows, is very fluid, there's movement in there. How do we bring these two together?
Well, it's actually more things than two, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
My head is a little bit spinning around that. So let me start from low-hanging fruits, something that easy comes to my mind. One way we can define discipline, probably the easiest way, is the best choices for ourselves. We make the appropriate choices, the choices that support us. That's discipline. Because we might have a wrong idea about what discipline is. We think discipline is pushing against something and overcoming something, when we are in the flow, which is not easy, there are some conditions for that, and we cannot manufacture it, we cannot make it happen. It happens as an outcome of us being in that situation. It's the same way, like, you want to sleep. You cannot force yourself to sleep. There have to be certain conditions. You can help create those conditions. The tamas, the inactivity and heaviness have to prevail in order for you to fall asleep. So I think you froze.
No.
No,
Yeah.
it looked
For a
like
second.
you froze for a second. I was talking about sleep, so it's just perfect. You got yourself into the state of deep, deep, deep meditation, it looked like. So the same is for this type of experience. And it's again, how we approach things that we do, or how we act. And it comes from the level of mind, of our understanding. And now it can get a little messy or complicated, because on one hand, we are the level of our understanding, therefore our mind, but on the other hand, we are not our mind. We are more than the mind. So depending on where we are on that scale of understanding and how much mind we're using, from which place, for what purpose, and all of those things, the ideal, the end result is that we are constantly in the flow, which people who studied psychology of flow know that it's not possible. It's not nature of life. Not everything is perfect all the time. And it's arranged for purpose, intentionally, because if everything was all the time perfect, we would forget what is perfection. So just like the river needs to experience its own strength of the flow, and if there is not obstacle in the flow, it does not experience the strength. Once in a while, a boulder is thrown in the flow of that river. So the river has something to overcome to experience its own strengths, and to be reminded of that. I mean, we have muscles, but if we never use them to lift anything heavy, we know what happens. We lose them. So it's arranged like this. Again, this is one of the natural realities that I don't argue with. I am more looking at how can I understand it better to collaborate with it, because I believe it's to my benefit. So the ideal, the end result is, and the research into the psychology of happiness, contentment, fulfilled life, creativity, and flow, such thing has been done actually, exists, is to get flow from as many areas in life as possible. That seems done on actual research. This is not an idea. This is reality. Looking at people who have had very, or who do have very fulfilling lives, what they have in common. That seems to be the way, and it agrees with our everyday experience. If you get up in the morning and it's a joyous experience, and you have a feeling, oh, I don't know, either, oh, I cannot wait what the day is going to bring. I'm so curious what questions Ilinca is going to ask me because I had this podcast today. Or I cannot wait to go for coffee to my favorite cafe, whatever. And then you have the coffee and you go like, oh, this is good. And then you do your work and you feel so happy that you're doing the work because something interesting happens, or even something problematic happens, but you're like, yeah, this is something I'm going to discover. You have this type of natural attitude, natural. And then lunch, and continues like before you close your eyes. This is flow from as many areas as possible. But what we need for that, I think best is defined by the forefather of yoga, which is Patanjali, the modern understanding of yoga. And that's given in the shloka from sutras, Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodhaha. So when does the mind stops fidgeting? when we are fully focused but relaxed, that means unattached to the process. Because when we too much attach, am I doing it right? What is happening? Should I do more? Let's push a little more because more is going to happen. That's the mind attitude. But the natural attitude, the child, when it's, my daughter was not saying, am I washing the hair of Barney right? No, she was just going purely for the experience. It was so absorbed in it, so quiet. And we know we are like that. The mind stops being quiet. And if you have difficulty that your mind is constantly telling you the thoughts, there are tricks how to get rid of that. And one of the tricks, and I think this is the genius of all these Vedic sciences, is if you start being so slow, if you get slow, the mind cannot have a thought. That's why there are all these, exercises and practices and disciplines, like breathing. The breath stops and goes slower and slower, and then you notice it's not 2 inhale and exhale, but it's 4. Actually, the breath is 4. Wow. Inhale and it stops. Prechaka. Exhale and it stops. Kumbhaka. And when you stay in that stop, it's so delicious. Because nothing is happening on the outside, but certain things can happen or will start happening on the inside. And they are so phenomenal and so unlikely and so different and so impractical from this point of the mind, but so important because they have a potential to give us a different type of understanding. But the mind cannot be saying, chop, chop, hurry up. Time is up. You got to be efficient. You got to produce more. So again, it brings us back to an intention, sankalpa. What do we want our life to be about at this stage of life? And going back to Ayurveda, my feeling and understanding at this point, and my own sentiment, so to speak, is that what is necessary to do for this phenomenal system that we have brutalized so badly is to bring silence into it, because it comes out of the silence. That's the natural flow. And not fretting and using ways that cannot give us a desired outcome. And that is to know what is the appropriate choice for me at any given moment. No one outside of me can say that to me. When you're describing how it's done these days, you said, the lists of food for your dosha, single dosha or dual dosha. Well, the problem is that someone else tells you what you are. And that's okay. We got to start somewhere. But the question is, and that's missing there, how do you relate to that? So if I say to someone, oh, you are dominant pitta, well, if we speak Ayurveda language, we know what that means. If someone is listening to this and doesn't speak the Ayurvedic language, let's translate it for them. It means that in your life, in your body, fire is dominant. So someone, really far out might say, what do you mean? Like, you sitting by the fire, or you sitting by the fireplace? What do you mean by fire? And we have to go further into Sankhya and explain that everything consists of 5 elements and how these elements work in the body and so on. So it's more practical for that particular situation and person. Say, do you notice how you respond this way, that way, and this? This is all the signs of the fire dominant. So how does the particular person relate to that concept is more important to me. So how it would work differently in practice would be if someone comes to me as an Ayurvedic practitioner and says, I was told that I am this, Vata Pitta dominant nature. I would say, how do you relate to that? Explain to me where and how you understand the Pitta in you and the Vata in you. And when people are capable of doing that, which in itself is phenomenal, what is very interesting is we usually have a tendency to define it by imbalance when it does not work. So people say, oh, I am impatient and, I get angry easily and chili can kill me and all of that. And I say, no, can you say, where do you feel that is your nature when it's in balance? So again, we need to correct this. This is error of our mind. So we are changing the whole system based on our limited understanding of the mind. It's like saying sex is about doing ha ha ha. I mean, it looks like that on the outside. If we don't have more discernment, there's so much more in it. Let's hope, it should be so much more in it. Just like in Ayurveda, there's so much more in it.
If there is balance.
If there is balance, but the good news is, and we know that from various ways and experiences, and this is a beautiful moment for anyone who studies Ayurveda, for example, when they are able to read and connect with themselves through the pulse, we always have a place in us that's in balance. That's the saving grace of this perfect creation. Because if it was not the case, we would rarely have a chance to find it. So, we are not as bad as we think we are. Number one. Number two, like increases like where we put energy, where we put focus, that increases. So if we put energy and focus only on what's not working, hoping that that will bring us to working, we usually are going to end up being frustrated because it doesn't work like that. And this is for physical part as well as for the psychological part. When I describe the natural laws, let's say for everyday functioning or being well going through the day and getting the benefit of the energy that the day offers us to people, when I then ask them, where do you see you have a problem? They are able to self-diagnose themselves. Maybe not everything, but something. They see, oh, I don't eat lunch in the middle of the day. You don't have to tell them. They know. And it has much more value if they discover it and if they relate to it than if I tell them, you need to eat in the middle of the day. Well, that's just like, today 4 tanks entered this and earthquake there. It's just noise.
And that's self-empowerment, actually.
Absolutely.
Getting to that point where you are within yourself, with yourself and within yourself, and you're able to say, I've noticed that when I don't do this, I don't feel okay, but when I do that, I feel perfect.
Exactly. And that's, I think, the practice of and sharing of Ayurveda should be based on that. So we as practitioners guide people in the desirable or necessary direction, but not by telling them what they should do and what's right and what's wrong. It's, it's not as easy path as telling them what to do. And so what I always say to people, the winter is coming and we need to be warm. So we have two choices. I can give you one pair of warm socks for the winter, or I can teach you how you can knit unlimited pair of socks. I go for knitting, because then you can give to others. You can have different patterns. You can have, unlimited choices, rather than you are just relying on one pair. What if you get a hole in it? You are screwed. You're finished. You need to go back and say, what do I do now? You are dependent on someone. And how can someone out of you know everything about you? You are the ultimate authority on yourself. You know why? Because you're 24/7 with yourself. You cannot escape yourself. No one can tell you anything that you already don't know. And that's the feedback I get from people. If I tell them something, they say, I somehow knew already this, but you made me more aware of it. And I go like, of course. It would be arrogant to think that after 30 minutes, or my consult is 2 hours, that after 2 hours, I am an expert on you. How can I know you totally after 2 hours? I mean, my job, and I spent my whole life, is to look into people, look in them, look at them, observe, and understand. So I am in the position, but it's a mirror I give them. I just offer them a different picture of themselves, and the whole idea, they recognize it, they accept it, they are reminded of what somewhere in them already they know, but they forgot.
What you're saying makes me think so much of all the autoimmune diseases that we are witnessing today, and how people run when we speak about autoimmune diseases and chronic diseases. They run here and there, specialized centers, and each specialized center has a different opinion and a different approach, but there's nothing, the puzzle doesn't come together. And all these people that they are waiting for a solution, for the last innovation, for the last research outside there, and they forget themselves, and the autoimmune disease just goes harder and harder on them, because the more they forget about themselves and the more they rely on others, it's like, I don't know who I am anymore. And I'm just wondering, in all this craziness we're just speaking about, I would go to see a Vaidya, an Ayurvedic doctor, I will go to see an Ayurvedic practitioner, I'll go to see a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, etc., etc. We're just, I have the impression that we are completely forgetting this approach of us as Ayurvedic practitioners, as Ayurvedic doctors, etc., etc. We are here to create the space for these people to be able to rediscover themselves, to explore what's within themselves, rather than just, oh,
one more different thing to do, to try. Yeah. Well, and what you just described, that's for me translates as the bringing the silence, because the silence means the natural functioning, the natural sleep, the natural hunger, the natural activity, the natural emotions. What is authentic? What, I mean, I hope I don't have to define natural, because if I do, we have a huge problem if we don't feel what it is, not to understand logically what it is, but if we don't feel, somehow we don't have a sense. Yet still, everything what you said is true, yet still it goes deeper, because you said who we are, reminding ourselves and understanding that, absolutely. But let's consider that for a second. What are we? I'm not going to say who are we, but what are we? Am I my body? Well, I have the body, but am I the body? Am I my mind? I have the mind. Am I my energy? I have the energy, but am I the energy? Am I my desires? And so on. So what am I? And, here we have to go back to how is Ayurveda set up, and how is this whole understanding of the creation and universe and nature and earth and us in it set up. And that is that we are nothing but crystallized energy. An energy of what? Energy of a consciousness, of a spirit. And to translate it into the human language, and this is going to sound like a cliche, but it's not, is what is at the basis of all the diseases, and autoimmune especially, is lack of self-understanding, self-acceptance, and self-support. In other words, self-love. So that also means we have a very powerful medicine that never is going to be in lack, never is going to be outlawed by, any legislature, any country, any system. It's also never going to be enforced because it cannot be regulated. And that's the medicine of gratitude, deep feeling of connectedness, support, true support. And, to be honest, I have been in situations in my life is far from idyllic, when I felt none of this. I felt so far out of this, out of reach for any of this, that the wisest suggestion to help me I got from someone was to sit every morning at 7 o'clock and to look in the direction of sun. That means east, even if there's cloudy and there's winter and there's no sun. And that was my only stability and security in my life for long periods of time. You might think that is so silly to do this. How is that helpful? But after a while, it had a profound effect, because it was the only thing in my life I could count on. I have tears in my eyes just to remember the feeling of gratitude. What role it played. And it's such a simple, trivial thing. So it's not as complicated as we think. That's the sad part. We can have so much more and so much easier if we would just understood or approached it a little bit different, but that means a different understanding. Less mind, more feeling.
Or being, right?
And that comes from being, exactly, and all of this is then naturally part of that. And let's remind ourselves, the wise words of wise people like Dalai Lama, who said, I think it was in his message for the new century when it was starting, which seems like such a long time ago. Almost a quarter of century already. And so he put some rules, how to approach this new time. And one of them was, don't forget that above truth, there is love. And the power of that, but it's not, is someone loving me? It's, am I loving myself? Do I feel loving? Do I love life? And I don't mean it in this, let's have a course on how to quickly love life so it will give me everything I want because my ego is in charge or my mind is in charge because I can have everything. So why shouldn't I? I don't mean it from this standpoint. I mean it from a true, just feeling. And I say just, but it's a big thing. Not wanting anything, just understanding that this particular moment can go one of the two ways. Either I don't notice it or I fill it with what's missing, or I focus on that it's gifted to me and that it's an opportunity that will never come back, which is somewhat stressful for a type of people like I am, then I feel like, oh, I have to use it and I have to fill it with the best. So we got to find our own ways to put ourselves into abhyasa vairagya abhyam, in the flow. So what am I focused at? What am I getting back? How do I approach things and how I go about it? That's basically, and anyone can answer that. And that's the starting point. And from there, I can always see and feel or be guided with someone who is sensitive to my own nature. And when they say and suggest something, if it's true for me, it goes like this. It rings, you feel it. And if it's not, don't consider that.
You make us really feel up to what point simple actions. You said a few moments ago that looking towards east where the sun rises can bring so much gratitude, and it can look so trivial. And finally we get to understand, to feel, to reconnect to the simplicity of life. I think, right, like you were saying, our ego, our intellect, that is always working towards more, towards a longer list, towards I need to do it. It needs to look complicated. We need to promise, right, to the others. Look, everything that we will do together, and you have this to-do list. I promise you this are many things, a bulk of stuff, and at the end of the day, we don't find our happiness in there, and we pass from one promise to another one, and so on, and we're like, oh no, this doesn't work for me. Ayurveda or yoga or the Vedic system does not work for me, but actually it's because we are overloading it with so much, and I think we're with this, we want to bring a lot of energy in there, like a lot of rajas and transformation and all, but actually we're making it so heavy that we're bringing inertia and tamas and overwhelming, and this huge rock, right, that is just dropping on our head. Oh my god, I did not do my dinacharya, I did not do my ritucharya.
Well, I didn't do my yoga yesterday, by the way.
I did not
True,
do it this
true,
morning.
true. And it was 8:30 in the evening, and I was thinking, should I do it or should I not do it? And I don't know to this moment if it was the right decision, but the outcome is I didn't do it. Maybe, what you're talking about, and I think that's good for putting it to the closure, is that what we are doing unnecessarily is we making a project out of life. And that's unnecessary because we do have life. We don't have to make a project out of it. If we could simplify it, not by what do we do so then the life is fulfilling, but we could simplify it. And this is a profound change when you start doing it in a systematic way, which translates systematic way means discipline. Obviously, there are, not perfection in that. So what we could do is, instead of what do I need to do so my life is better, is how can I feel the best at this particular moment? And then go do things if we need to do something out of that inner place. And of course, when we feel terrible, we cannot make a jump to feeling wonderful and, be grateful. I remember a point in my last relationship and marriage, when we had this lovely ritual for a period of time. We had an altar, and we sat every evening there into like a little silence and contemplation, and we were sharing what we are grateful for. And there were days, I remember, I could not find anything. This is how I felt. And this is about truth. So, you don't say just things cliche. You really have to feel them. That's the point. So they have to be filled with a particular emotion, the emotion of gratitude. And I was silent for about 10 minutes. I could not come up truthfully with anything. That's how I was filled with the opposite energy. And then it dawned on me, and I said, somewhat angrily, because that's the best I could do, was like, well, I'm grateful for having this life. And that was the best I could do. So the whole point is, as long as we're moving in the desirable direction, that's what counts. Not how far we are, how perfectly we're doing. Today, this moment, could I use it for more enjoyment? True inner enjoyment. I don't mean the sensory enjoyment that I see something and I immediately want to give myself whatever I see. I think even animals might have a little more restraint than that. So, for that deep, again, that fire in us that knows we don't have to figure out anything. When you get in connection with this, it's such a relief, I have to say. And that's how it meant to be, I believe, because that agency of wisdom in us knows so much more than we do. And for that, I'm very grateful. And that's the path. And it does not matter where we are. There's always a possibility to move in the direction that's benefiting us, that's supporting, that we have good, exciting, filled with good feelings, thoughts, and actions life. And I think that's a lot at this time of instability, chaos, dramatic change, when it's unknown what the outcome is going to be. I mean, that's the time we are in. And I'm not speaking of pandemic. No one, thinks about that anymore. I'm thinking what's going on now. So maybe we all will sit 7 o'clock in the morning and looking hopefully towards the east.
I think that what you just said, it's so powerful, because it's in these times where we're facing so many crises at all levels, right? And the energy, like you said, it's all types of energy. They're everywhere, and there's this chaos. I think that it's a time, like you said, that is inviting us to go more within us and to keep with us, in this lifetime at least, what really serves us, what really makes that makes our prana being, I mean, maybe not conserved, but not over depleted, and minimizing, right? I think
what nourishes us, what makes us, feel lively and full of life energy. I mean, basically very simple, rather than taking energy away from us and feeling drowsy and, zombie like and sleepy.
That's a good question. What does nourish you? What does bring?
What does nourish me personally? Yeah. Oh, so many things. Most probably the moments when I tune into the connection with the inner wisdom, which is the larger wisdom, most importantly. And I'm very lucky because that happens through the course of my work with people, because my role is to guide them in that direction. So when it happens for them, I am reminded, and it makes a switch for me. So I might go, into a session not in a good condition, in some inner turmoil or chaos, and 90% I come out harmonized by that process. So that's an amazing benefit. Pursuit of creative things. And this sounds weird because all life is creative. So I am not living every aspect of it like that yet. But for me, it's music, sound, silence, anything that inspires me, dance, laughter, aesthetics, nature, good food, good company. I mean, there's so many things. And because of my constitution, I also like and need to move. So for me, it's time alone in the nature. Usually it's alone. So I'm not disturbed, by presence of other people. I enjoy them, but it's a different process. And I make sure that I put that in my life, and I am very lucky that I can make those choices, and I'm making them for myself. But I would say what nourishes me is anything that's natural in life. So it's all the time, by the way. The only time when it's not is when I am not in the state to receive. But because we are set up for natural, comfort and pleasure and efficiency and flow, we learn pretty quickly, I think, what works and what doesn't work. So we are drawn in that direction, which is interesting because for the brain, it works quite the opposite way. If you choose the known way, and it's not the way that's natural, brain is actually set up for lifelong discovery. So again, for me, it means that we are consciousness, everything is consciousness, and the body is the matter is crystallized energy, which
that is so beautiful.
Someone came up with long time ago, and we still are trying to put it in practice.
Matter is crystallized energy, and we are matter.
So and diseases are crystallized emotions. I think we can go on with this forever. It's like a perpetual, thing. And I hope that the people who listen to our discourse, or sharing, I guess that's a better word. It looked like you enjoyed yourself. I enjoyed myself. That not only they enjoyed themselves, but that they find some inspiration for their life. That's my true hope. And make, the best choices for themselves, because we can co-create our life.
Let us finish with these words. We can co-create our lives. Thank you. Thank you so much, Martina, for this wonderful, for your wonderful sharings, for this wonderful time that we spent together. All of you that have listened, that have watched to this episode, you can find Martina Ziska's website and contact details in the description below. Martina, really so much gratitude and so much love towards you and towards you being a messenger of all this amazing wisdom. And thank you for being there for all of us.
Thank you. What a lovely Monday morning. Anytime. My pleasure.
See you all soon, and thank you for tuning in for this episode of podcast. And stay well, be in peace, and enjoy life.